We open up with a shot of some pots. Pots containing pasta? Who knows? The first nameless character counts his money. He has managed to make a staggering £30 on his last sale. He gently feels the tips of his callous pasta-like fingers until he hears a knock at the door. The second nameless character enters and sits opposite. Strangely, a pile of playing cards lays between them. The dealer practices magic, methinks. Perhaps a code of some sort. The room is detailed with a number of items, including a yellow cone, various discarded bottles, a colander, and what looks to be a Sainsbury's plastic bag. Could all of these small details point to something bigger? The dichotomy of these characters sat opposite from each other is striking, to say the least. With one demonstrating an innocence and naivety that both leads to a nervous demeanour, whilst the other, with his hood up, is very concealed, striking a poker face to demonstrate his control over the entire situation. 2 bags of pasta are removed from the backpack, one cooked and the other uncooked. Another duality. I personally choose to see the cooked pasta as representing the buyer, adaptable and slippery, but nonetheless still a hearty portion of a man, whilst the uncooked represents the seller, spindly and weak, a novice in the game. A gesture of the chef's goodwill, eh? Or too afraid to name his price? A harsh slam of the table gets the seller's attention as he attempts to leave in a hurry. Linguine, clearly being represented here as a lesser form of pasta in the Spagdealerzzzz universe of pasta rankings. The king is Spag. The significance of Baker Street is one that yearns to cast a vague disdain of this new underground loaded carbs drug scene, painting a sweet vignette of these savoury dish dwellers living their lives for the spag. But the tone of the tune is not one that looks down on these folk. It is one that looks side on. It is one that looks side on, as though to say, what else are they to do? Now what you are seeing here is what we in the biz like to call visual gags, formulated by the very talented Ted Woosley on this particular project. Alongside the Woos on this project were a number of other people working both in and around the camera, one of which was the director Miles Ribeiro. The visual gags were formulated entirely by Woosley and Woosley alone, and he wants you to know that. He has a strong sense for comedy and an even stronger sense for cinema. According to sources of the non-pasta variety, watching him work is like looking at an oil painting. A very interesting oil painting. The director of the film, Miles Like the Distance Ribeiro, is an acclaimed artist who rose to fame in the late 70s with his dramatic portrayal of Elmo of Sesame Street fame in Elmo's Revenge, a puppet's case study. In the aftermath of this success, Ribeiro developed a sticky habit of encouraging others to drink drive. While said encouragement isn't technically illegal, it is heinous, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he continued this practice to this day. Reports from the set state that Ribeiro took directing to the next level, with one report coming out and saying, "He directed the shit out of us." One could only imagine the horror that entailed. The YouTube video is titled with 4 Zs, whilst the on-screen title only includes 1. 4 minus 1 equals 3, and there are 3 characters that feature in the film, the 2 main characters and the off-screen voice of the police officer. Or are there 4? The 4th being that of the looming presence of the director. What does this ambiguity symbolize? And most of all, what does it mean? But nonetheless, does it mean something? My best guess is that it has something to do with the government, and that's as far as I'll go. Overall, this seedy little film is the opposite of finding a diamond in the rough. It's like finding a lump of coal in a big pile of diamonds, which you could argue is even more rare.
Door is gone.